Cybil Bennett is a tough, experienced and driven cop from Brahms, a town which neighbours Silent Hill. But how did she become the strong and determined police officer she is today? When she was a little girl, Cybil's family home was broken into by an intruder. She hid in the closet for safety before looking through the cracks of the door and witnessing her parents being shot in the heads. This incident obviously changed the course of her future and heavily influenced her decision in becoming a noble police officer. Seeing things for how they are and being competent in handling any horrific situation for what it is and acting accordingly. This is evidenced later in her career, particularly through her actions within Silent Hill. One afternoon, Cybil Bennett receives a phone call sending her to Silent Hill to investigate her precinct's lack of communication with the Silent Hill police. Brahms isn't so far from Silent Hill. In fact, it's close enough for Cybil to just simply get up, hop onto her bike by herself and ride to Silent Hill in the middle of the night. On her way to Silent Hill, Cybil passes just one car, which happens to be our friend Harry Mason and his daughter Cheryl. With no time to drive alongside them and wave, Cybil sets off fast into the distant fog. But later into Harry's drive, her bike is found run off to the side of the road and Cybil is nowhere to be seen. Harry continues his drive, but also crashes after seeing a young girl in the road. Harry wakes up and finds that his daughter is missing. He then follows her familiar silhouette down a nearby alleyway, where he is later attacked by some strange creatures before he collapses. He then wakes up again in Cafe 5-2, where we also find Cybil. So, what just happened between her bike crash and finding Harry here? According to the play novel, Cybil woke up after her crash and entered the cafe to get out of the cold weather, finding Harry who's already asleep. But just so you know, the novelisation of this game actually suggests that Cybil followed Harry down the alleyway and killed the creatures that was attacking him before bringing him to the cafe herself. Either way, the two meet in the cafe. Cybil's first priority is to find out what happened to Silent Hill, asking Harry what he's doing here in the first place. Harry explains his intentions and that he's only here on a vacation with his daughter, who is now missing. She admits that what's happened in this town is bizarre, with nobody else around. But she never dwells on this too much. In fact, she tells Harry she's going to call in reinforcements, a very logical and clear plan to have in this scenario. Before she leaves to call for backup, she leaves Harry with a gun to protect himself, instructing him to stay nearby and only use the weapon if he needs to. Sometime after leaving Harry, Cybil finds a silhouette of a little girl roaming around the foggy streets of Silent Hill. She chases her, trying to catch up with the silhouette, only to lose the girl in the eerie fog as she reaches the end of Backman Road. An end which has been obliterated with no path ahead. The little girl that she was chasing seemed to just vanish. Cybil continues to search for the town, hoping to at least find a way out, but all of the exits seem to be blocked, more often than not destroyed. She has found that phones, radios and even cars have stopped working entirely. She explains all of this to Harry as the two reconnect in an old antique shop where Harry explains his journey so far, and how he's met a strange woman named Dahlia Gillespie, who told Harry that Silent Hill has been devoured by darkness, and that is the reason for all the strange occurrences in the town. However, Cybil seems to be the only rational person in the town, and instead of suggesting a dark force is behind the horror Harry is experiencing, she figures another source is behind this madness.
Must be on drugs. They sell them to the tourists.
Cybil has some insight into an ongoing investigation of drug trafficking in Silent Hill. Still unaware of who is behind the production and distribution of these drugs, but cautious that this might be the darkness that Dahlia is describing. Although Cybil's idea is logical, Harry's experience goes beyond a dark fog sweeping across town, and more like a hallucination. His world often switches between this foggy reality and a much darker, grim red world, where monsters roam around and he feels like he's in a nightmare. This is news to Cybil, who has no idea what Harry is going on about. She isn't part of this nightmare he's described, and so she suggests it's likely because Harry is tired and exhausted after searching for his daughter for such a long time. She refuses to acknowledge this other world, or monsters. At the back of the antique shop is a passageway that Harry crawls through. Cybil covers him but notices that he's considerably quiet after some time. She then climbs through after him and finds that he has actually vanished. For everyone else in Silent Hill, they became victims to the horrific events and nightmare world which is manifested by Alyssa, as they are directly linked to her, whether it be Dahlia, her mother, the nurse, other half, or other half's father, the person responsible for keeping you in the hospital. All of the characters in Silent Hill story are somehow linked to Alyssa, apart from Cybil. This is why she hasn't seen any nightmarish incidents or been transported to another world like Harry has described, or in fact vanished. She was never supposed to see these events unfold, as she has no links to Alyssa and is simply an outsider, accidentally a part of this story. It's here where I just want to clarify that the play novel does fill out a lot of blanks in Cybil's story. For example, what she does between meeting Harry at various locations. The play novel says that Cybil does in fact fight monsters as she searches the streets of Silent Hill, the police station, and the school. It's at the school where Cybil actually finds Cheryl, who is hiding in the music room, and tells her that her dad is looking for her. The pair end up searching for Harry through Silent Hill. They end up hearing church bells and think this might be his way of grabbing their attention. When they get to the church, however, she is met by Dahlia Gillespie. Dahlia laughs and nods when Cybil asks if she lives here. Dahlia turns to Cheryl and says that she has done well to come here. Dahlia then continues to laugh as Cheryl shakes her head repeatedly and Cybil shouts, saying that the two have had to fight monsters to get here. Dahlia says it isn't her who is holding the child's hand, rather the child is holding hers. For once in her whole story, Cybil loses her cool and goes to say something before her mouth is covered by Dahlia, who says that Cybil should escape the demon's grasp as soon as possible. There is nothing that she can do. Dahlia then disappears behind a door as she calls out the name Cybil Bennett. Cybil is confused. How does she know her name? Cybil gains composure and leaves the church with Cheryl. The two search the hospital, followed by wandering the streets together and talking. The nearby water interrupts their conversation though, as the strong current of the aqueduct has turned into a large river. Depending on decisions made throughout the story of the play novel, Cybil could either find a young boy or girl in the water. Finding the girl would lead Cybil into reaching in to save her, and falling in after her. Cybil then would see Alyssa standing over the edge watching her with no expression. Cybil then loses consciousness as she is swallowed by the dark waters. If Cybil finds a boy, however, she reaches in to grab him and fights the current to save him whilst calling out to trust her, and pulls him up as he's on the brink of drowning. But as the young boy is pulled up, he screams, "You were the one that pushed me." Cybil is confused, and the boy runs past her to grab Cheryl, grabbing her and saying, "What do you know? Why don't you tell her to stop?" After grabbing her, Cheryl falls into the water below and is swept by the strong current. Cybil runs over, but in a desperate attempt to catch Cheryl, also falls in. In both scenarios in the play novel here, Cybil is swept away in the water. Cybil and Cheryl both then wake up in pitch black, now holding hands firmly, and Cheryl begins to explain why she wanted to come to Silent Hill in the first place, and how Cybil and her dad must leave. She stops before explaining herself fully. And then, a light breaks through elevator doors in front of them, flickering yet offering a chance to escape. The grip the two had on each other's hands gets weaker and weaker, and as Cybil steps closer to the elevator, the grip on Cheryl's hand turns out to be an illusion. It was just a dirty doll that she was holding, or, in scenario 7-8, a green goo. That dirty doll that she's holding happens to be the same one that Cybil was holding whilst her parents were shot earlier in the story. Feeling sentimental, she brings the doll with her as she feels the elevator begin to descend. So this large portion of the story was in fact from the Silent Hill play novel, so now we actually go back to when Cybil finds Harry at the boat in the original story at the resort area of Silent Hill. Cybil finally gets Harry to explain what is going on in the town, and Harry essentially relays the darkness Dahlia described to him earlier, except now he is convinced that that is the truth. Cybil understands Harry's frustration, but reassures him that what he's experiencing is just hallucinations brought on from exhaustion. But before she can fully explain this, Dahlia walks in. Harry and Dahlia go back and forth over what happened if the child isn't stopped, and what Harry must do to get his daughter back. Cybil, despite not following and believing this otherworldly presence, wants to help Harry find Cheryl, and they plan to separately search the lighthouse and amusement park. Cybil wants to find once and for all what is happening in this town and save Cheryl.
Cybil, thanks.
Cybil chooses to search the amusement park, where the nightmare that Harry has been describing finally catches up with her reality. Whilst on her way through the sewers of Silent Hill, a connection between the resort area and the amusement park, Cybil is hit and knocked out. Now this is a really interesting point of the Silent Hill story, because whilst there are monsters out there that can attack, this is a very well calculated hit to Cybil. I mean, she is found carefully searching the sewers around every corner and would have likely seen any creatures splashing around in the dirty water or loudly stumbling through, quite like Harry did when he was in the sewers. And the actual attack itself seems strategical, a single knockout blow to the back of her head. The monsters in Silent Hill are never this clean. The next time Cybil is found is at the amusement park, sat up in a wheelchair. She was transported somehow from the sewers below up to the place she told Harry she would be. She then stands up when Harry finds her and stumbles towards him, but now with bright red eyes. It is obvious that she has been infected by the darkness which has turned most of the town. She even raises her pistol at him, but fortunately misses when she shoots. Okay, so Harry is able to kill Cybil, in which case her story ends here. Or Harry can save her. During his time in Silent Hill, Harry uncovers more about the drug trade that Cybil mentioned and decides to go on an investigation of his own. In the hospital, he finds a broken bottle of an unknown red liquid on the floor of Dr. Kaufman's office, which he can then pick up using a plastic bottle from a nearby kitchen. This red liquid is Agliphotus. To learn more about Agliphotus, I suggest watching my other video on the drug trade of Silent Hill. But what's important here is that Harry uses Agliphotus on Cybil, which causes her to burn up and deliver this parasite out of her, which Harry then stomps and kills. She doesn't remember anything about what's just happened. Okay, so I want to just go back and re-emphasise what's just happened. Dahlia tells Harry and Cybil that they need to go to the lighthouse and amusement park.
Go to the lighthouse on the lake. And to the center of the amusement park.
Knowing that they are tight for time, she also assumes that they will split up, which they do. Harry goes to the lighthouse and finds a glimpse of a girl who vanishes, and that's it, nothing else. Meanwhile, Cybil is left alone and knocked out in the sewers, and then transported to the amusement park, now with a parasite in her. All I'm saying is, it wasn't some monster who randomly attacked her, it was someone who didn't want a cop to be snooping around Silent Hill during the birth of this new god. Someone who cares about protecting the Order and all of their secrets. With the parasite now killed and Cybil back to normal, she understands the dark elements that Harry has been describing, as she has now witnessed it firsthand by Parasite. They embrace this realization by figuring out that Harry's daughter has some connection to the town, which is bringing on this other world, and agree that she now must be saved.
So what do you do now?
Cheryl is my daughter. I will save her no matter what.
Harry then encounters Dahlia and Alyssa, who are reunited once again, before he is transported back to the hospital, and they are lost.
Let's go home.
According to the play novel, Cybil fights to stand up after her parasite situation. She walks forward slowly, in pain but with great strength, in the direction where the parasite was heading, from the amusement park through the open door of a garage dump. She then finds a long staircase to a basement, which leads to a long corridor. Cybil feels a warm breeze and can tell that something is coming at the end of the corridor that is burning. She approaches the end of the corridor and finds that a door is at the end, now beaming a bright red light, and is open a bit. Cybil walks through and encounters Dahlia and Alyssa. Something horrific has just happened.
I was shocked to realize the talisman of Metatron was being used. In spite of the lost soul returning at last. Just a little longer and all would have been for naught. It's all because of that man. We must be thankful to him. Even though Alyssa has been stopped, his little girl has to go. What a pity.
Freeze! What in the devil's name? Ugh!
And this is where the end scene with Harry plays out. If Harry has done all he can in Silent Hill, then he'll be able to also save Cybil as she joins him through the end portal created by the incubator. In the end, Cybil replaces Harry's wife Jodie in a reimagining of the opening scene as a nod to Rebirth, one of the game's main themes. Cybil is then never seen again in Silent Hill. Cybil Bennett's involvement with Silent Hill is an important one. She gives Harry support and reassurance, whilst offering a realistic view of things. Maybe, if not for this grounding work that she does, Harry would have lost his mind very early in the story. Her journey can be quite messy. The play novel and novelisation of Silent Hill both give her an important role in saving Cheryl, more so than she does in the original game. Although she could be seen as the outsider of the story, her persistent involvement with helping Harry gave her a purpose in Silent Hill's nightmare. That's not to mention the doll from her past trauma, the urgency that she has of protecting others, and refusing to submit to Dahlia's guides. Cybil Bennett is the one friend that we would all need in a nightmare town like Silent Hill.